Welcome to the 2025 Dialogue, a masterclass series by the HR Association of India. I am Neha Jagnani, and today's session brings us to a theme that is redefining how we work, lead, and live. Today's topic is leading with empathy, redefining work, culture, and well being. To help us explore this transformative space, we have with us Harini Sreenivasan. She's a curious soul who loves shaking things up. Coming from a family of innovators, engineers, and teachers, she's a unique blend of all. A business transformation consultant, coach, and speaker, she's all about self management, agile leadership, and doing things differently. She helps organizations break free from rigid structures and embrace creativity, collaboration, and smart decision making. A nature lover and an environmental advocate, she finds joy in writing, experimenting, and bringing fresh ideas to life. Whether she's mentoring MBA students, moderating panels, or sparking conversations on LinkedIn, she's always on a mission to inspire change. If it's unconventional, innovative, or just plain fun, chances are she's already exploring it. Harini, thank you so much for joining. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much, Neha. HRAI and the dialogue both are very, very close to my heart. Really happy to look at the topics that you are all exploring through these master classes. I'm sure it will be a great value add.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Looking forward to this exciting masterclass, Harini. So, to begin with, my first question for you is in an era of constant change, how can leaders practice empathy without compromising on accountability or performance?
It's an interesting way we look at empathy. So, first and foremost, I want to actually highlight here that empathy is not an opposite of performance and accountability. In fact, empathy is something which will enable accountability and better performance. So, if we were to look at how it helps in an era of constant change, empathy is simply put, it is the foremost behavioral competency of a leader. And I also want to take this opportunity to clarify the difference between sympathy and empathy. What sympathy brings to the table is probably softening of the stand. I feel sympathetic to someone and I say, okay, it's okay, it doesn't matter. Uh, we'll extend the deadline, for example, right? But
Right.
when I'm empathetic, it doesn't necessarily mean softening the stand. In fact, it doesn't mean softening the stand. When I'm empathetic, all that I'm doing is I'm putting myself in the shoes of the person I'm talking to, and I'm trying to understand and look at the situation through their eyes. That's all that I'm doing. And what it makes me look at it and what it makes me do is to look at the problem or the challenge or the constraint through their viewpoint and immediately offer a support. So, an empathetic leader actually enables the person, the team member, to overcome challenges by asking simple questions. So, here is where we are. This is where we need to go. How can I support you? Or what can I do differently so that you're able to get there? And this is very, very far away from sympathy. And a lot of time we make those mistakes. And a lot of time empathy is also equated to being a compassionate leader. And when we say compassionate leader, it's important for us to understand that leadership in business cannot be merely compassionate and not allowing accountability to be there, right? It doesn't work for the business. So that critical balance is important. And empathy helps you do that. It makes you look at the other person's point of view, feel like what the other person feels in a very objective manner, and ask those right questions for things to be taken forward. So, it all said and done, empathy is a performance and accountability enabler, and in no way it deters accountability or performance. And therefore, I think in the future, or we are in the future, we keep talking about it so much, but we are already there. I think what actually the leadership competency that takes things ahead in the right sense, in the right speed, is empathetic leadership. It drives performance in it.
Sure. Thank you so much. Beautifully put. To start with, you mentioned that empathy is not the opposite of performance and accountability. It rather enables it. and also very beautifully articulated the difference between sympathy and empathy, which is so fundamental, yet it is so important to understand for people, wherein you're softening a stand when it comes to sympathy. But empathy is when you put yourself in the shoes of the other people to understand things more objectively. So thank you so much. Beautifully put. Um, my next question, Harini, is what does well-being truly mean in today's hybrid and high-demand workplaces? And how can organizations integrate it into their culture more meaningfully?
This is an interesting area which I've been exploring quite a bit, and I've got opportunity at my client places also to experience this. It's very interesting. The mind and the body are extremely well connected. Mental well-being actually impacts physical fitness in a very big way. You can't really separate the mind and the body. So when someone is, let's take an example of someone who is physically unwell. But if what is happening at the workplace is extremely exciting and motivating, that
Mm,
person will overcome that physical feeling of not being well, get up and go to work and achieve it, come back with the feeling of a kick. On the other hand, a perfectly fit person who's physically fit, has no illness, is not suffering any pain, if that person is going through a stressful situation at the workplace, it's very easy for that person to start imagining physical, illness. And that plays on their mind. And then the mind keeps telling them that you don't need to go to work, and it transforms into physical illness, right? And that's a very beautiful thing, and many a time we don't visualize it. And it's super important to also understand that the the way we deal with mental health or mental well-being or in general well-being at the workplace, you cannot deal with it and correct it by conducting 1 hour yoga session every week, or let's say ensuring that people take their days off. Even that doesn't really ensure well-being at work. Well-being at work is the majority of time that people are there at the workplace. They have to feel well, right? So just imagine 8 hours of a work day, and that's when you talk about your stress, you feel the stress, you start thinking whether you're valued or not. What happens in 8 hours of a day cannot be set right in 1 hour of a yoga session, right?
right.
The yoga sessions and the walks, the morning walks, etc., these are nice ways to maintain well-being. But what is the cause of the lack of it is something that needs to be investigated. And invariably, it is something that creeps in at work. If you simply go and ask somebody, how valued do you feel at work? And ask them to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, and anything which is below 5 is an area of concern, and you need to probe deeper and find out what is it that is causing them to rate in that manner. So and in hybrid work, all the more, what's happening in hybrid or remote work, what's happening all the more is a lot of, like, a lot of areas are, a lot of boundaries are getting blurred. When boundaries are getting blurred, one way to look at it is to very clearly say that these are the boundaries and refuse to work beyond them. But practically speaking, that may not be possible. We all know it, right? Even though I draw a boundary, let's say I draw a boundary of 6 p.m. every evening, but if there is a work exigency, I cannot say I won't attend to it. It doesn't happen. So practically we know it, especially all those people who are so passionate about work and who feel very accountable towards their deliverables. They can't draw strict boundaries.
Right.
In that case, what do we do? In that case, it's very simple. Keep your expectations very clear. It need not be about a cut-off time. Expectations may be very clear about, this is what I am setting out to achieve. This is the outcome I can drive. And my expectation is also that whenever I face a challenge, whenever I face a roadblock, I will have to have those conversations. So please be available. Similarly, leaders can also set those expectations that what they would do as leaders towards their team members. So when we say setting boundaries, it is not just setting time in the clock. It's about, what role am I playing towards that outcome? What can you expect from me towards that outcome as a leader? Or as a team member, what can you expect from me as towards that outcome? When these expectations are set right, it goes a long way. And I think it's also the leaders have to take the first step. They have to probably walk that extra mile. And it starts from there. Trust, empathy, psychological safety, all of it is top down driven. So leaders have to take that first step and start working towards at least have the intent of having well-being, giving priority in their teams.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Beautifully put, Harini. I think to take care of well-being, one-off initiative cannot do. A yoga session, as you rightly said, it is those constant check-ins. It is the interactions that you have with your team will enable you to understand them better and also create an ecosystem where people are able to share and also improve their well-being when the expectations are set right by the leaders. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And yeah, sorry for interrupting, but I just thought it's important to say this. It's not about knowing the team member as a professional. It also helps, not just team member, even peers. It goes a long way when you get to know that person as a human being. So sometimes, we also recommend that people should on and off have agenda-less conversations, non-work related conversations, where you get to know the person as a human being.
Right,
And that's very far away, and it's you get to know the person as a human being, and it's not just as a professional. So
right.
it also helps you understand the emotions of that person. It helps you understand the thought process of that person. It becomes easy to approach when there is a struggle, and all of this adds up to better well-being.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much for adding that. My next question, Harini, is how can empathy be embedded into leadership development rather than just treated as a soft skill or one-off initiative?
Yeah, it is definitely not a soft skill. It's a competency, and it's a behavioral competency. If it's a I don't know hard, soft, whatever. But if it's a skill, it can be taught in a classroom. But empathy is not a skill; it's a behavioral competency. It cannot be taught in a classroom. It has to be reinforced into the daily behaviors of leaders. So how do you do that reinforcement? It has to be intertwined into their ways of working. So there are different things that a leader can do to demonstrate empathy. For example, when a leader is addressing a team, an empathetic way to look at things is you put the problem statement on the whiteboard and you ask your team members what do they think about before you jump into explaining what you think about. When you say what you think about it, you're actually indicating that you refuse to see their viewpoint. So one thing that we normally recommend is leader speaks last. So when you're trying to solve a problem, let offer or encourage your team members to come up with solutions. Ask curiosity questions. Why do you think this will work? What makes you confident? Tell me more. The simple thing of tell me more is making yourself vulnerable, and it helps you to look at things from the other person's perspective. This is one way. Leader speaks last, tell me more. These are small tools which one can use to practice empathy in the way they conduct meetings. Similarly, when there is a feedback conversation, one thing that we strongly recommend is keep feedback for the sake of feedback so that the person improves. And feedback is not supposed to be something for performance appraisal alone, right? So de-link the two. So in these feedback conversations, instead of making judgmental comments and giving your view of how things are, it would make a lot of sense if leaders cultivate the habit of asking the person to walk them through what has been their experience on that project or what has been their experience in the journey in the last 1 month. Give them an opportunity to talk first and explain. And when you're listening to a conversation like that or an explanation like that, you tend to visualize things from there as they see it. And that makes you an empathetic leader. And the quality of feedback that you will give after listening to their story first will be very, very different and very positive and productive compared to a feedback, which is a judgmental thing, which is stuck on their face. Many a time in the past, long back in the past, when I was doing these experiments with people, one of the things that a lot of people told me is we are scared to sit in feedback meetings because we are never heard. And hearing first and then listening deeply is something which is fundamental for empathy. So I think in every interaction, in every conversation, I'm not talking of the coffee machine conversations. I'm not talking of any informal conversation. I said in every interaction at the work, like in meetings, like how you delegate work, how you monitor performance, how you assess performance, how you give feedback, how you ask for suggestions. I think in all of these, if practices of the leader being curious, the leader asking more questions than giving answers, if that comes, I think slowly the leader starts developing empathy as a way of life. I would say just like we have way of life, like how you live. A leader lives 8 hours or 9 hours or more of his day, of his or her day, along with the team members. So I think empathy slowly becomes a way of life. Yeah, but at the same time, I just want to reiterate here that being empathetic does not mean you're softening your stand. And I really want that to ring loud and clear in all our minds, because that's where we can kind of lose our balance and fall into an area where we uh, disallow accountability. That shouldn't happen. Yeah, so empathy should become a way of life for a leader.
So thank you so much. To start with, you mentioned that it is not a skill. It is not something that can be taught. It has to be reinforced. In order to conduct yourself as a leader, one is you have to be curious. You have to be asking questions and giving your team and your peers a chance to share their own experiences. Also, in the context of feedback, it is very important for leaders to cultivate that space where people are able to share their experiencing, and listening and acting upon it becomes crucial here in cultivating empathy. So, thank you so much. My next question, Harini, is what role do trust and psychological safety play in creating cultures where people can thrive and innovate freely?
Oh, absolutely. Without psychological safety uh, and trust, innovation just won't happen. You can't force innovation. Uh, you can't even try to build a culture of innovation if psychological safety and trust does not exist.
Right.
So I would actually say trust is like a currency, and psychological safety is the environment where you use that currency. So you build an environment of psychological safety by learning to be empathetic, by being curious, by asking questions, by making failure normal, by normalizing failure. You do all of that, and you use the currency of trust. And like it's popularly said, there should never be a trust deficit, and it starts from the top. So the leader starts demonstrating that he or she trusts the individual. And when I talk of trust, again, I want to highlight here that trust is not only about I trust the integrity of that person. It's a little easy. It comes also very easily. What is really important for well-being in the workplace is not just that integrity wala trust. It's about I trust your ability to do it. So when the leader is entrusting, see again, I'm using the word trust here. So when the leader is delegating work to somebody, they're actually entrusting that person with that outcome, deliver that outcome. So without trust, it just cannot happen. The person will be waiting for instructions. There will not be clarity about who's accountable for what. So the best is to give the big picture, talk about what is the end result we want to achieve, and trust that person to do it. After all, it is the leader who has chosen that person. That
Right.
leader has conducted the interview, hired that candidate. So obviously, one has to trust one's own selection, right? So
Yes.
trust the ability of that person to do it, and things happen like magic. And when you trust, and again, psychological safety and trust, they go in hand in hand. Like I said, psychological safety is an environment. So build an environment where failure is normalized. And how do you do that? You don't tell people it's okay to fail, right? You can't allow lack of accountability. You demonstrate that it is okay to fail by doing the following: at regular intervals, discuss about what's happening. Let the person talk about what went well. Let them freely introspect about or retrospect about what did not go well, what things could have happened differently. You're giving team members a chance to talk about their failures. And that's a very subtle way of normalizing failures. We don't want ad hoc, chaotic experiments just because you said failure is okay. We want people to think, and in their journey, if something goes wrong, it's perfectly fine, but they need to have a focus, right? So have a focus at regular intervals, get into a rhythm of having these conversations. The rhythm is important. If you have, let's say, a retrospective meeting, or uh, you have it only when there is a crisis, when something happens, then it doesn't work. Then it becomes policy, or it becomes more like an interrogation. Do it in a rhythm so that people also are aware that you're going to expect that they're going to expect these conversations. They come prepared with even their failures.
Right.
Believe me, it works beautifully. When there is no penalty associated with that conversation, people feel very safe to talk about the mistakes that might have happened. And of course, last but not the least, the leader has to role model that behavior. If you're saying that you want your team members to feel safe and talk about the mistakes that they have committed, it's very important for leaders also to be vulnerable and be open and share about their flaws. And when I say vulnerable and sharing flaws, it's not good enough if you say that when I was your age, in your position, I made bigger mistakes. Doesn't help, because today you're in a position where you can afford to go back and talk about it. But today, as you stand today, in your position, if you have not done something up to the mark, are you vulnerable enough to share it with your team members? When you do that, you're demonstrating or you're role modeling vulnerability. And that goes a long way in increasing psychological safety. And if psychological safety is an environment, you have to constantly keep nurturing that environment. And trust is one way that you keep putting trust into the environment, and that environment gets nurtured. The psychological safety, when people are allowed to experiment, they're allowed to come and talk about their experiments, they're allowed to talk about the failures in their experiments. If there is a healthy conversation, innovation is a byproduct. One doesn't need to push innovation to happen. One doesn't need to have an innovation week or an innovation month or an innovation department. Innovation also becomes the DNA of the team, of the organization. So build and nurture an environment of psychological safety using the currency of trust. That's what I would say to drive an innovation culture.
Sure, very comprehensive and very important points. Normalizing failures, it has to start from the top. Trusting is not just about trusting integrity, but the person's ability to do something is another point. For the normalizing failures, you also said it's important to have those healthy conversations where you can check with people what went well, what could have happened. So it eases the person, and people do not shy away from expressing their setbacks or failures. Last but not the least, leaders have to be role model. They should be able to open and be vulnerable. This gives an opportunity for them to connect with people more at a deeper level, and also reinforces that trust that is crucial here. So thank you so much. This brings us to the last question, Harini, which is looking ahead. How do you see empathy and well-being shaping the future of work and leadership?
Oh, definitely. I think that is the future of work. Like I said earlier, empathy is the probably the most crucial behavioral competency for leadership. If a leader develops the ability to look at things through the other person's eyes, they obviously become better leaders. They become sought after leaders. And well-being is again a byproduct of this. Who doesn't love to work with a boss who is empathetic? Who doesn't love to go that extra mile for an organization where, in an organization where psychological safety is very high? You don't have to ask people to come and do extra work, and it just happens. Innovation will just thrive. And I think organizations that ride on psychological safety and empathy, I think they are the organizations that will thrive in any kind of crisis in the workplace that can happen. And mental well-being, which is directly linked to physical well-being, is also something that will happen if these things are at the workplace. And it's actually not very difficult. If you see, there are it's just we need to revisit some of our processes. Most of our processes are archaic. They have been inherited from the past, and they're all top down. And what we actually need, what's the need of the hour to drive empathy, is start looking at them a little more leveling. reduce the power distance, level those processes. So if we revisit those processes, I think the answer is very clear, because empathy, psychological safety, they are the thing of the future, and those are the environment and the leadership skills that's required for organizations to thrive.
Sure. Thank you so much. Beautifully put. This brings us to the end of the masterclass, Harini. Thank you so much for such thoughtful insights. And you have actually reminded us that empathy isn't just a leadership trait. It's a powerful force that reshapes how one experience work and evolving with purpose and connecting with people at a deeper level. So thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you very much, Neha. It was again a pleasure talking to you. Like always, these conversations have takeaways for me as well. Thank you very much, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Thanks. Thanks a lot.